Hi everyone. Today we are going to start our course for petroleum transport and storage engineering. Well, we have divided this course in two parts. The part one is we will deal about the petroleum transport, and the second part we will deal about the storages of choices of storages and how we design the storages for storing the oil or the the liquefied natural gas products and so on. So today is the first lecture, and I welcome you on board on this course. And I hope you enjoy and learn something new about the petroleum transportation system, and do some really nice calculation and use some nice softwares for petroleum transport and so on. So let's start with our topic. The first of all, as you know that we have lots of oil and gas fields around the world. Uh, In Kurdistan, we have many fields. For example, we have Sarkala, we have Danaged, we have Kirkuk, and many more. Now, when we have these oil fields, we have lots of oil coming from those oil. Well, this oil is in a raw shape, in a raw form. We call it a crude oil. I mean, crude is a raw form. It has so many components. So this crude oil has to be refined and has to be dispatched to the marketing oil, benzene or gasoline marketing companies to sell it to the customers so that they can use in the car. So this crude oil, which is produced from these oils fields, needs to be transported. And this is our topic in this subject. Here you can see that we have lots of oil field. We have to process them. We have to separate this crude oil. This crude oil is then transported to the refinery. Now, these lines show the transportation. Now, there are many ways that we can transport this crude oil, and one of the most easiest is by the trucks. And in Kurdistan, mostly the trucks are used here in this region. Then the second mode of transportation that we have is uh, the pipelines. The one you see here, these pipelines here, this one, the pipelines. So pipeline is the second main transportation mechanism, and the most cheapest one is the pipelines. Then we have some more transport mechanisms, which are about the railroad, railways, or ships, and so on. So transportation is an essential part of oil and gas business and oil and gas industry, and we are going to focus about transportation in this one. First of all, let's look at the output of one barrel. I mean, for example, if you get 1 barrel of oil, how much benzene that you call it here in Kurdistan or gasoline in normal term you are going to produce. So, for example, if you have 1 barrel, 42% of it is gasoline, and 27% of it is diesel, and 5.8% is the jet fuel. Here, normally in cars and trucks, we are going to use the gasoline or diesel. So this crude oil has to be transported. Not only do we transport this crude oil, but there are so many other products that we can transport through the trucks. We do transport through the trucks and pipelines and so on. For example, the you are transporting the crude oil from Kurdistan to the Cihan port of Turkey from here. This is one of the main example of transportation going on here. Well, before we move ahead in this subject, we need to talk about the upstream, downstream, and the midstream activities. Normally, in oil industry, we use the technical terms of upstream and downstream. We, as a petroleum engineers, we are working in upstream uh, industries. Our main job is to drill, produce, and maintain the reservoirs. This is the main job of the upstream petroleum engineers. The downstream part is the dealing with the gasoline fuel station, the way you see in the city, and they are doing the marketing and so on, the storage and so on. And midstream is about the refining operations and so on that we have here. Now, first of all, this petroleum transportation, what can we transport, and what are the products that we have that we can transport? The most important product we have is the crude oil. Most important product is we have the crude oil. Then we have so many natural gas pipelines around the world. Not here in the Middle East mainly, in US and Canada, but here in Middle East you can find the crude oil pipeline. Especially in Kurdistan you can find one easily. Then once you prepare your oil and gas, You can send and dispatch the products, for example, gasoline, using the trucks or by the pipelines and so on. Then LPG, we need big transportation for LPG, and we have also the condensates and alcohols and CO2 for EOR purpose. So we have so many things to transport, and it's a separate engineering. If you do not calculate the risk, it may danger the life of many people. Therefore, a proper engineering is needed in order to do the proper transportation here. Let's go ahead further and look at the components of the typical pipeline. But before we go ahead, I'm going to show you some of the nice uh, uh, some of the nice videos. Let's get back to our lecture now. So here it is. Okay. Now, when we talk about this typical uh, pipeline distribution, because we are focusing here the pipeline because these are the most economical way of transportation of oil and oil products in all over the world. And in this kind of oil and gas transportation, we definitely need sorts of facilities. For example, uh, what could be the first of all, we need to know what could be the components of this pipeline. For example, now let's start from this field production facilities, offshore and offshore. As you know that when we have the sea, uh, let me show you here. When we have the sea kind of a situation, assume that this is the seabed. Here we have, if we make it this, here we have the seabed. Now, if we put the platform on it, uh, for example, if we put the here platform, and our wells are not here mainly. Maybe our well is here. Maybe our well is here. Then our second well maybe is here. Then our third well maybe is here at this point and around, or so all these wells has to be connected, and we connect them here. So we connect them towards the one panel. These connections are actually the pipelines that you see here that needs to be connected here. So these we call them the gathering pipeline facilities. Then we need lots of pipelines. As you when you visit any oil and gas field or refinery, you see there are a lot of pipes which are transporting oil from one part to another part in the treatment processes. Then we need lots of terminals, pump stations, where wherever the pressure has declined, we install the pumps in order to. And we need meter and custody transfer. I mean, what is meter? For example, when the well is producing 50,000 barrels per day, how do you know? And if you transfer this 50,000 barrels per day to government or maybe to refinery, you need to calculate actually how much you sold. So in that case, we have the meters, which are based on flowing meters, which can calculate the number of barrels, uh, even just by uh, using those devices. Then we have the main transmission pipelines. Main transmission pipelines are the longest one, for example, 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers, 500 or 1000 kilometers. For example, from here to Chihanport, we have the main pipeline that we have. Then, of course, we have lots of pressures to main valves to regulate and flow the pressures and so on that we have. So these are the basically typical components that are needed for any pipeline. Leak detection system, if there are any leakages, how you are going to detect. So you must have a leak detection system. There are many computerized system, which we call it SCADA, and the purpose is to manage the pipeline from an office. So there are SCADA systems that can be used to using these pipelines, and we can control the pipeline from the office and monitor them as well. Then, as you know, the weather is different. Weather's uh, is time dependent also, the region dependent also. So weather is the main reason of corrosion. We need corrosion agents. We need storages. For example, now you are transporting oil, but where this oil should be uh, stored. So we need storage tanks for that, and so on. We have to make sure that the what kind of oil we are sending for the sampling purpose, to know its composition, to know its water content. We must know that what's going on in this one. Well, how is the process goes on? First of all, we need to look at the process. Well, the oil that you produce, it has to go through the refinery. So first oil from the this oil goes to the refinery. Okay. And from the refinery, after it makes the products, it goes to the customer. Okay. So then we need a gathering pipelines to the storage system. Once it comes out of a well, we store it at the field. This is the main job that we have. Then after it is stored, uh, we storing here in this point here in the first step, what we do, we have the separators mainly, and using the separators we separate gas, oil and water. And this crude oil, once separated from the gas and water, we store it in the tanks, production tanks. After this store it is in tanks, we then transport this crude oil into the using the pipelines and so on. Then this oil pipeline is moved through the long distance and so on, to the customers or to the refineries or to another country and so on. And definitely the pressure has to be maintained throughout. If we make the process here, how actually the process goes. For example, this is the uh, okay, I make this is the our reservoir that we have here. This is the, for example, reservoir we have. We put one well in it. Here is this. Here is the well in it. Now, the first thing that it happens from here, we have the separators. We install the separators here. So this is the reservoir. This is the well, and from here it goes from here to the separators. Here the oil goes towards the storage tanks, and we have then storage tanks here that are used for this purpose. So after the storage tanks, the oil, this is the reservoir. From reservoir, oil goes through the well, goes through the separator. From here, the oil goes to this storage tanks, and from the storage tanks, we have the long distance pipeline. Now, this oil can be sold to another country, could be sent to the refinery. So that's how we actually look at into it. Then this is, we are talking about the main crude oil pipelines that we have. After that, we have also product-based pipeline. For example, now in refinery, you made the gasoline. Now this gasoline has to be transported. Well, usually in Kurdistan region or in Iran areas, or we have the trucks that transport the gasoline here and there. But there are many countries in like US and Canada and Europe. There are the product transmission pipelines, and they transport the product from one place to another place, including this gasoline that you are using here in cars at the same time. Single product is only a single product you are transporting. For example, you are sending crude oil, so you are just sending the crude oil. But then we have a product there which is um, multiple product. For example, you are sending ethane, methane, uh, sorry, you are sending pentane, heptane, or octane separately in separate phases. Then it can be a two product pipeline and so on. Then there we have many pipeline types transmission based on the location. As you know that we have offshore wells, they need their pipelines. We have onshore on land based pipeline. We have small flow lines which are used to connect the wells towards the separator. We have transfer line transferring oil and gas from one place. So where is the transporting of oil from the small places, from the small plants, refineries, fields towards the big long distance pipelines, long distance transportation using trucks, ships, and go on. Here is the picture. I want to like bold it bit one. So this is showing the infrastructure of oil and gas in Kurdistan region, and here you can the field. This is the Kurdistan region. Here we have, and our main fields we have Tauki, Taktak, Miran, Chamchamal, Kormor plant, and there are many reservoirs you can see here in Miran and Tiasur and Kormor and so on. Now, these all uh, fields that are producing oil, they have to be gathered at one place. So now, this red line you see, this is the pipeline that we have. It goes through the Erbil and through this region, and from here to Turkey and so on. Basement, Turkey is going on. Then we have another pipeline in Iraq, which is was busted here. It's not functioning right now. So the only viable pipeline to send this Kirkuk oil, Taktak oil, and so on is through this Kurdistan pipeline, which goes through the Duhok and towards Turkey, and then through the sea we send it to the Ottoman region. Now the strategic pipelines that we have from Iran, from the Basra, and plus from the Iran, here from Basra. So they want to send oil through this Iraq and towards from the Syria towards the European area. That was the strategic pipeline the Iraq is working on right now. But again, as you see the cross, that these cross showing the pumping stations, but this pipeline is not functioning right now. But this pipeline is also is not working because of the situation in Syria. So actually, Syria has a sea part, this part, and this sea actually is giving a gateway to the Europe. So that's why all the pipeline goes through the Syria and so on. Here, these are the pipeline construction. Mainly, you can see the US is at the top for the transporting products and crude oil using the pipelines here from US, Canada, America, then Asia, Middle East, the least one, using the pipelines and so on. Here we are standing at this point, and there's a lot of major movement of oil, especially from Saudi, Iraq, Iran, and so on. So, if there are good pipelines, there will be a cheaper transportation mode, then more oil can be sold and throughout the world, and so on. As I said before, we have two kinds of pipelines here that we do. One is the single product, and the other one is the multiple product. Single product is you are sending just one product, let's say the crude oil or bitumen or water or any one fluid. But in the multiple product, you can send two or three products together, but you just put something in between in order not to mix each other. Well, flammable and combustible liquids are the most common products by the liquid pipelines. So we can transport the gasoline, aviation, jet fuel using the pipeline, and they are cheaper mode of transportation and so on. This diagram actually shows the different products. You see here jet fuel, regular gasoline, and so on. We can transport in one batch from one place to another place using the liquid pipelines. These are the properties, and as you know that for the transportation, the property of the product that we are using, it really matters and so on. So today was just the introduction that we decided that we have a course for petroleum transport and storage. In the first part, we will talk about the storage, sorry, the transportation, and in the transport, we just today discussed that we need, uh, we emphasize that the transportation is important and is needed essential part of oil and gas industry. We need some long distance pipelines. We have tankers, we have trucks to transport the the products from one place to another place. Now, this was just an introduction. In the next lecture, we will talk about the basic properties that we must know as an engineer to in the transportation process, because these properties can be dangerous, can cause losses of money, finance, product, as well as environment, and as well as the life of the people. Therefore, we take care of those properties, and we will talk about in the next lecture about them.